I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Feud, Capote versus the Swans composer, Julia Newman. Julia, first up, before we get into the nitty-gritty of this show, as a third-generation film and TV composer, when did you know that you wanted to be a musical storyteller and follow in the footsteps of your father and grandfather?
To be honest with you, it took me a really long time. It was not something that I had any intention of doing. I think mainly because watching my dad be up in front of orchestras my entire life, it felt huge. It just felt like how is it that you are able to come up with an idea that fits what's going on screen? And then secondly, how is it then that you take on a writing and leadership role in front of an orchestra and you actually watch the ideas concretize outside of just you and yourself or you and your studio? So it was never something that I was interested in. I remember when I was in graduate school, people would say, I always knew that this was something that I wanted to do, and that was just not my experience. A lot of it was I got an undergraduate degree at Cal Arts, and I was at a friend's apartment and got offered a short film, and I think it was really as simple as falling in love with what it means to put music under picture. And then really what stemmed from there was a really amazing musical relationship with my dad that had really always been there. But I think because of his 40 years of experience in this industry, I think to be able to go to him for the most basic questions to the most complex questions as it related to politics and it related to writing, it was just there's just something about it. There's something about focusing a dramatic moment, creating dramatic architecture, how it is that you can help clarify story that I just found to be incredibly interesting, right? Not just musical ideas, but musical ideas as they relate to picture. And it's not just a matter of saying, here's an incredible thing that I wrote, but here's something that I wrote, and how does it dance with what's going on screen, with everything from the cinematography to the lighting to the acting. And it was an interesting dance that I don't know, maybe I just wasn't good at anything else.
I highly doubt that, but I see what you're saying because there's just something so special about watching a film or TV show and having the music elicit that emotion that nothing else can really replicate. It's so special. So let's talk about Feud because you are trying to help capture the essence of this bygone era with all the splendor and drama that 60s, 70s, and even 80s New York socialite high society typically evokes. So then when you're in this, what was the instrumentation that you gravitated towards to really make that shine?
To be honest with you, I think it started off with just sheer desperation of just saying, what does it mean to have an idea? Being a young composer and having 8 episodes in front of you and knowing that the music was going to be demanding in some form or another, right? It's Truman Capote, and it's this epic story sort of uh, really spanning his life, starting off, I think we start off in 1955, spanning all the way to his death in 1984. So there was music was always going to be more outgoing, and honestly a lot of it started with just here's a couple of dominant chords that I feel like I can kind of float on top of. And then you kind of start singing a tune and you think, shit, what's the best way for me to get this idea
Yeah.
approved, right? How do I do the idea justice, right? My dad had this great line that he told me where he said, don't spend too much time on anything that'll be rejected in 7 seconds or less, right? And I think that that's particularly true at the beginning of a project, right? That you want to honor the idea that you're putting forward, but I don't want to be so attached to the idea in thinking this is all I have to offer, right? Part of my job is to remain light on my toes and to maintain a sense of dramatic flexibility. So, I started off with this tune and I started off with a couple of chords that then kind of developed into a tune. And I thought, all right, I'm gonna take a risk. I'm gonna invest, have a cellist, this incredible cellist who played all over the score. This guy's Cameron Stone, who was so brilliant. And I owe so much to him. And I had him record it, and it was a scene in episode one when Babe Paley, I think towards the middle of the episode, when Babe Paley is in her room and kind of getting ready, and that's, I think, where a lot of it began.
Wow. That's so interesting to me. And when you speak about the cello, I love the combination of mellifluous piano melody that's over or with an overlaid emotional string element, that's like the gold. And I'm immediately hooked when I hear that. And a great example of that in this particular score are tracks like Treatise on Friendship or Le Coq Basque. And I'm thinking like, what do you most value about the piano as the emotional baseline in your scores?
Oh, I mean, I think there's a real clarity to the piano. You know, I think when I'm writing, there's something about sitting at a piano that it's like I can really understand and digest the verticalities of kind of my chords. So I think a lot of it started there. It wasn't a matter of saying like, you know, all right, I get it. Here it is. I'm gonna do piano. I think a lot of it is trial and error, right? Because I don't think I would ever be so arrogant as to say like, yeah, I know exactly what this needs. I have no idea, right? So I think part of what it is that piano is something that we all have. I think all of us have a MIDI piano and some good piano patches. It's a really good way to kind of begin an idea. It's a great way, particularly if you're writing modally, you can have a bunch of different ambient textures and you can still get the cut through of the piano, which I think just dramatically ends up working really well. But all of it comes down to, what does it make me feel when I'm actually putting music next to picture? That has to be the end all be all. As beautiful of an instrument that I think piano is or cello is, my responsibility ultimately is to picture. So if piano hadn't worked, then I would have abandoned piano. But I think that there was an elegance, to it, and I think also to, you know, it's digestible, it's malleable. There's a dramatic flexibility to the piano, and you can be outgoing without it being, I think, too overwhelming to the ear.
Wow. You know, speaking of writing to picture, the score doesn't shy away at all from jazzy and especially percussive tracks, even whimsy, because Capote to me, there is a lot of whimsy for him, particularly the way Tom plays him, so brilliant. Like tracks like Delirium, Tremens, and Wasps. What inspires the kind of pensive, mischievous instrumentation that I feel a lot of this score has?
So all of the women together sitting at Le Coq Basque, just
Yeah.
gossiping back and forth, these back and forths. I became much more adept at scoring these very long dialogue heavy scenes by the end of the series than I was at the beginning. But it just struck me that everybody had an agenda. And I think what I loved so much about this show is that they're kind of no good guys, but we empathize at different moments with all of the characters. Everyone, I think, inhabits a real humanness. And in inhabiting that humanness, of course, everybody is flawed. And I think I just loved the idea of Truman Capote always just kind of listening, always kind of the typewriter going on in his head, that everybody was always scheming. And I think it's actually part of what makes the story so powerful, right? That it is as shallow as human beings can get and as deep as human beings can get. You know, what does it mean to be on your deathbed and to regret a friendship lost? I mean, that
Wow.
is
Yeah.
that's so profound. So, but I think that in order to achieve the profundity at the end, there has to be this element of fun, because I think we'd all be lying if we said that there wasn't a moment where we sat around the table and gossiped and, had our ideas and plotted and schemed. Hopefully not to the extent that some of these women, as well as Truman Capote, did. But I think I wanted it to be alive more than anything, and I wanted there to be a sense of real delight, and weirdness.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I will often call my friends or text them and say, "Hey, let's get together for a drink and just do a bit of trash talk," and we flourish. And I'm going to play Wasps the next time my mates come over for a beer because it's the perfect track. On that note, Julia, thank you so much for your insight. Thank you for your time, and we'll bring you back shortly for our panel.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure.